Hi everyone. Welcome to MX Talks episode 2. Um Dan, could you try speaking so that we are sure we can hear you?
Hi, how does it sound?
Oh, great.
Hey Dan,
It's good.
nice to see you
Hey,
again.
Shin. Good chatting with you again. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay. Uh so firstly I would like to introduce all the speakers today. We can start with Dan, because it's the first time he's joining us today, and we are very grateful to have him here today. He runs a YouTube channel under the name Full Value Dan with 176K followers. So that's a real mean feat. Basically he makes difficult crypto concepts easy to understand. Maybe Dan, you can take it away with a short, brief intro of yourself.
Hi. Yeah, that actually describes me pretty well. So I started making crypto content in 2020 just because it's been something I've been interested in for a long time. And people liked it. So I initially made the channel to help some get involved with like exchanges, how they work. And simplifying it is probably what a lot of people need to get involved in cryptocurrency. So I just started making more content, and a lot of people found that helpful. And that's kind of what I've been focusing on doing. But with the recent bull market, I've just been deep diving and following trends and narratives and just doing a lot of research for my own benefit rather than making content.
Nice. And your content is actually really easy to understand. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, so it's really fun to watch your content. Thank you so much for making it as well. So next we have Shin. I think some of you guys know him already. He previously led the Visa data science team and is now a core contributor to MarginX, working on data science, AI, and machine learning. Can you give us a brief intro of yourself?
Sure, yeah. I think you did a pretty good introduction there yourself, so there's really nothing to add. I'm just glad that I'm here in another episode of MX Talks to talk about CBDC, and I think it's a very apt title to talk about because CBDC is all the hype these days, and as per Dan say, it's on the bull run as well. So crypto topic is on the hots again. But how does that tie into CBDC? It's yet to be seen. So I'll look forward to see what other speakers have to share about this topic later. Back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Shin. And lastly, we have Eric. Eric is of MarginX and an active forex and stocks trader. Previously, he was a GM of the development firm. So, Eric, maybe you can do the honors of introducing yourself.
Thank you, Dion. Well, that pretty much sums up. I suppose I'm the only guy here that gives a market kind of view, because property development is such a brick and mortar kind of industry. So, I don't have anything else to add to the introduction. Thank you. Just happy to be back.
Yeah, the last one was fun, right?
Yeah, indeed. I can't wait to hear what are some of the topic of discussion we have for today.
Okay, maybe then I can get right into it. Just wanted to give a brief overview. Today we will be talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currency, kind of like discussing what the benefits are, what the risks are, and also just kind of giving our own personal opinion on it. And firstly, I want to ask, can somebody explain to me what CBDCs really are?
I think that's Dan's forte. It's already in CV to explain things in a simple way. But
Absolutely.
But let me have a go at it, right? Like I let me put it from a layman's term if I can, because I think CBDC, to be honest, there is some definition of it, but I think it's still as clear as mud. We hear about a lot of hype about a lot of countries are already issuing CBDC or researching them. But the fact is, the only one that actually issued CBDCs are a small number of countries, in Bahamas, in Nigeria, for example, that actually use a CBDC and actually push it out to the public. Majority of the CBDCs, whether it's China, whether it's the Bitcoin, a lot of it is still in the early testing and research phase. So I think I just want to put a caveat there that a clear definition of CBDC is not right there yet. I think we can all agree that CBDC is a digital currency that's issued by the government and backed by the government. And I think what kind of functionality this kind of CBDC would actually play still remains to be seen. I think we all hope that it will actually help to bridge that digital divide that we currently have between the blockchain world together with the government, which is a more centralized. So in the blockchain, we always talk about decentralized, and from the government point of view, it's always more centralized point of view. And again, there's lots of question marks on whether some sort of smart contract will be embedded with some of the CBDCs. A lot of these functionalities are still up in the air, in my opinion. So, sorry, I think I've actually made the concept much worse, but I just want to put a caveat there that CBDC's definition it's still as clear as mud, in my opinion. I'll just leave Dan to clear up my mud. Sorry, Dan.
No, again, that was a good explanation, but for people that aren't familiar, it's just a digital currency that a government uses. So in the future, we could probably be a cashless society. I know a lot of first world countries are pretty much that way already. Everyone's just with credit cards. But with a CBDC, it would just be more cashless. You wouldn't need the ATM. You'd have access to your currency digitally. There'd be less money being printed physically, which, does cost a lot of money. Like the US in 2022 spent $4.3 billion printing cash notes and minting coins. And, there's a lot of other things related to that, too, as far as the speed of transferring money between banks, the settlement time, securing cash, because, you don't want a cash truck being robbed. And it's just a lot of things that would actually simplify the lives of everybody as we move digitally, but that also introduces some potential problem.
Right. Thank you for the introduction. Eric, do you have anything to say? Or I can move on, because I have some queries when hearing what Shin and Dan had to say about CBDCs.
No, please go on. Actually, please.
Okay, Ken. So, to kind of clear up, I think I have a misunderstanding about CBDCs, or maybe just a gap in my knowledge. I don't really understand what the difference is between fiat e-payments and a digital currency. Could you guys kind of share with me what exactly is the difference?
So I think the CBDC, that's just issued by the government. I'm not too familiar with the term digital e-payment, but might be something more something more commonly used in Singapore. But I think that's when a third-party service helps make money to be easily transferred online, something like PayPal, something like some type of digital money service, and that's third party working to make fiat into a digital currency where we can use it digitally in a more simplified way.
Mm-hmm. Would it be different? I mean, if we can use fiat in a digital way, then what's the value of having a completely digital currency?
I just want to supplement on what Dan said. I mean, Dan, you're absolutely right. I think digital payment is something like PayPal. I guess it's more popular in the Southeast Asia region. I'm not quite sure in the US. I haven't been there for years, certainly not in Europe. I think in Singapore we got the kind of Pay Now and Grab Pay. So exactly what Dan said, which is basically some sort of third-party e-payment systems. They sometimes have their own tokens. They sometimes don't. And just to say the difference, I think there's major differences, right? I think to answer Dion's question between the three fiat, digital e-payments, or sometimes we call it mobile wallets, and the CBDCs, I think they're quite different. So fiat generally refers to cash, like actual notes, physical notes that you can carry. We can then obviously deposit those cash and fiats on with banks, and then banks will transfer among themselves as digital payments as well. But it's slightly different from CBDC. So CBDC, I guess it's at least the way we understand it is closer to how a lot of the cryptocurrency works. It should have some sort of distributed ledger technology behind it. Although some of the government and central banks are thinking about that. It will have, but it's inherently a digital currency, which means that it's not how you keep the fiat in the banks and the banks are holding to your fiats. Whereas digital currencies, ideally the custodial will sit with you. You can actually own it digitally and do the transfer. The native technology allows you to do the transfer from peer to peer. And then the difference between this and the mobile payment system, I think the biggest difference would then be CBDCs and fiat are both backed by government. And I think that's the central theme behind CBDCs, backed by government. And it's important that it's backed by government because it creates trust, right? So if a lot of these mobile payment systems, if they're not backed by government, you do not know what will happen to them. And that's why sometimes some form of their usage depends on KYC. There are some terms and conditions. Whereas if you're using CBDCs, I would expect the usage to be very similar to fiat, which means that anyone can use it everywhere and should be recognized by everyone, right? That is basically what fiat means. You have a note that says that the government of the UK recognizes this note as a legal tender, therefore everyone should accept that. But if you use Grab Pay or some other form of payments, I might not be, as a small kid, if I do not pass a KYC, I might not be able to have access to that. Or if as a retail, I don't accept that. So there are all these kind of situations. So the key difference, I guess, between CBDCs and mobile payment is the government recognition of that. That's my thoughts about this question.
Oh, right. So it's like more about accessibility, wearing, I guess. And also like faster transactions probably. So okay, thank you, Shin, for explaining. I think I'm a bit clearer now. So I also read that apparently more than 100 countries have explored developing their own CBDC, and 11 countries have fully implemented it, including China. So I was wondering, like, why all this hype? Is it just like, FOMO? Are governments just trying to regain control over private crypto?
FOMO is a good concept.
It's a good concept.
No, I
Why?
was like, government and FOMO. Wow, okay. No, I'm teasing.
It's okay. FOMO is a big thing in crypto, though.
Yes, because that ultimately drives hype, and the market basically works on greed and fear. So FOMO basically drives everyone's greed and says, "Oh, I got to get in on it," right? Yeah. Which is not a bad thing if you're on the bull side. So it's right.
So do you think the governments are doing this because of FOMO?
No, I don't think so. But I would like to add about the e-payment, the mobile payments, and the digital currency. I think, see, central bank digital currency. The word central bank means that they are the one ultimately backing, right? Like Federal Reserve is the ultimate last lender. So the digital currency that's backed by central bank, generally that every customer now deals directly with the central bank. Whereas for e-payments, every customer sort of deal with their banks, and then the banks will settle with the central bank to at the day, right? That gives a lot of convenience, like what Dan was saying. You don't have the transportation cost. It's a lot efficient, but that also means that the central bank has a lot of knowledge about what's going on in the market, like who is paying who, like who is buying what, whether you're paying your taxes or not, where you're buying your things. I think when it comes to China, China has made known that the democracy is not their thing. So I think when it comes to China, I think from what I read, a large part of what they want to do is to wrestle some control back from Alipay whatever the payment terms they have in China. I mean, China is amazing. Like when I went there like 10, 15 years ago, I went to this market and people are already paying it with mobile payments. I was like, wow, I can't even buy at that time. I can't even buy chicken rice in Singapore with mobile payments.
Yeah. I heard also it's the whole like Alipay system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the Alipay and WeChat system. I think 5 years ago when I was in China, like they don't even accept cash then. Like I had cash with me and like all of them were blocking me. Like nobody accepts cash anymore. So I was and I didn't have the app. So cash was pretty much useless when I was in Beijing 5 years ago.
Oh
yeah,
wow, but
it's
then
like cash
also,
king, not really. They stop
not
you.
really. Yeah, but then also like a lot of your personal data is on the app, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, exactly. I think exactly that. That's why, to Eric's point, right? I think that's what the Chinese government is trying to do, right? It's trying to wrestle back that part of that authority and that kind of nation. Because imagine that your entire economy depends on Alibaba, basically, right? Because they are now almost like the central bank because everyone just transacts through Alipay and WeChat Pay. So to that point, it's to answer your question, I think it's sort of a way. I wouldn't say it's formal, but it's sort of a way for them to get on board with digital payments because they know that it is a huge thing right now. But I also believe that the government is not in a hurry to do that. The government just want to sort of like have a placeholder. We got this thing, and when and if the citizen do decide to adopt this thing, we can just plug and play and things would happen. And I think it depends a lot on developers like me, myself, and my team to actually build that bridge. I think it's going to be complementary. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for more innovation in the block sphere where it's almost akin to when stable coins appear. So it gives us more opportunity for us to connect TradeFi with DeFi world. There must be a bridge, right? Eventually, there must be a bridge. There must be some sort of connection where we can actually connect between the two different worlds. Whether we like it or not, I'm a believer that blockchain is never going to, or cryptocurrency is never going to completely replace the TradeFi world. Although some of my fans would disagree with me, but I think the future would be more complementary rather than a complete revolution where everyone stops using fiat. So I think CBDC is where it comes in, where it tries to tap into the cryptocurrency and the blockchain sphere and try to connect a bridge. So it's like the government reaching their hands out to us and say that this is there anything we can meet somewhere in the middle?
Right, that totally makes sense. I mean, it wouldn't make sense if the government just insisted on sticking to cash when everyone is moving to crypto or digital currencies. So I do agree with you on that. I also wanted to take this chance to find out from each of the speakers what are your initial thoughts about CBDCs? Do you think it's good or bad, or do you think it's just you don't really have any opinion? Maybe we can start with Dan.
Sure. Yeah, I to also say I agree with what Shin is saying because CBDCs are creating more opportunities, even though they may cause some problems. There is a lot of fear out there with some people thinking that CBDCs might be very bad. People are going to get tracked. But every time a problem arises, people find a way around that problem. And that's where the opportunity lies for things in the world of crypto to create products or services to be built around either in a centralized or decentralized way to work with CBDCs. Now, I also wanted to mention with the whole China thing, and they don't have a strong belief in freedom for their people, and they're very strict about money coming out of their country. But I saw an interesting solution online that people have been doing. At the moment, there's a $50,000 limit on Chinese funds leaving the country. But what a lot of people do is they go to Macau, they buy like a $100,000 gambling package, and then they have to gamble that money. They buy that package, and then With the package, it includes $100,000 worth of casino chips. So then the people take those casino chips, they go to a private room, they gamble $100,000 worth of baccarat, they end up losing about 10%, which is the cut of the casino, and that's how people are able to move money undetected out of China. I'm sure there's other methods as well, but anytime there is surveillance and problems and things about privacy, solutions will be created. So I'm for CBDCs, and I am looking forward to what people develop in the future to get around any type of problems that may arise from government surveillance.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know about the baccarat casino issue, but that's like a big loophole. Thanks for sharing, Dan. What about Shin? Like, what do you think? Good, bad, or neutral?
Yeah, I think it's good. I agree. It's an opportunity. A lot of people see it as a threat, but I think it's an opportunity for us to connect to the TradeFi world. I think the blockchain community and the crypto community cannot take government as an enemy forever, right? Like, I know not everyone does that, but there's certainly not small amount of people in the crypto world that views it that way, and it's sort of like we are sort of like inclined towards anti-establishment. But I think, if I put it quite plainly, governments wants to have control over the fiscal policies and quantitative easing. Things like printing money and stuff like that. So, well, another, the government going to like, for the complete decentralizations of financial instrument, if you will. So I think CBDC, it's a really good opportunity for us to actually build a bridge towards the government, and this is where the TradeFi world and the DeFi world will meet in the middle. But apart from this, which I already talked about earlier, I also think that it will spur a lot of innovation. All the kind of smart tracks and the kind of products that we're developing right now already in the blockchain sphere could be applicable to CBDC as well, essentially, right? Because again, we don't exactly know what kind of protocols or the exact functionalities that they want to incorporate into the CBDCs. But essentially, and technically, it's possible that they could include things like smart contracts, and you can imagine in the future, loans will be actually very much like how we do it in the blockchain world right now, where it's actually embedded into the smart contract. And I can foresee that this will actually revolutionize the way central banks work as well. So I definitely see this as a good opportunity for both the developers and the users as well.
Right. Eric, how about you? Do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I think I just want, first off, I want to add to what Dan was saying, that I think moving money out from country traditionally, that it has always been before our crypto time, before CBDC. I read an old article that any countries with a private airport, with a casino, private banking, you will find people moving in and months in and out of those places. Quote unquote unseen, that thing, right? As for CBDC, I think it's inevitable that most government will head towards that direction, because it offers a central bank extra tools and extra equipment to do with what they need to do. Because previously they can only increase and decrease interest rates, right? So, but right now, if they have CBDC, now they are in direct control of the supply of money. They can supply money. They can destroy. They can supply to certain parts of the population to boost growth. I'm not an expert in that area, but I think CBDC will be very important towards that regards, because I think most of the governments in the world now, especially after the pandemic, we have inflation with a large supply of money, and we need some. I think the central bank is in need of extra tool to to manage some of their financial challenges. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I think it comes it's kind of on the same same topic what Shin mentioned, that CBDCs drive innovation, and with what you're saying, I mean what I'm interpreting it as is that it allows for more creativity and additional tool for governments to use in order to boost certain parts of the economy or society, and that's really interesting to hear. I just want to give a shout out to David Benke, who joined us. Thank you so much for being here. He's the president of MarginX and previously Ethereum board member and general counsel of Microsoft China. If you would like to speak at any time, David, I've just let me know. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Kind of like just now we compared like e-payments with CBDCs. So now I really want to know what is the difference between CBDCs and stable coins? Like, yeah, is it just about the governance? Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, sure. Then feel free to go
Then
first.
maybe you can go
okay.
first.
Yeah, so CBDCs would just be issued by the government, whereas stablecoins have an issuer. The issuer could be through an algorithmic stablecoin smart contract, or stablecoins can be issued through a centralized authority, something like Paxos. So it's pretty much the government versus people. The government makes could create the CBDCs, or with stablecoins that could be created by a person, a developer, an organization. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Just to be the devil's advocate, to sort of like push some buttons. I guess the immediate question that comes in is, you already have USDC, USDT, and a lot of stable coins that's pegged to the US dollars. So what if the USA came out with CBDC that's worth exactly like US dollars? What would happen to USDT and USDC? Is there any difference between an American-backed CBDC versus a USDT? And I think that's where a lot of people feel a bit threatened, I think. But again, I think there's opportunities than threat here. I personally felt that the main difference, there are advantages to CBDCs, right, versus stablecoins, because they are backed by, so-called trustworthy sources, which is the government. Again, as I understand, a lot of anti-establishments here who do not believe that the government is doing in their own, the feds are making decisions in their favor. But nevertheless, let's treat them just like another entity, but an entity with pockets, right? So they the CBDCs that they backed is less prone to the situations of that could happen, like Luna, where sometimes some bad things happen, some bad actors happen, and the currency just basically crash. That having said, again, the caveat is that it has happened to fiats before, so it's not to say that fiats are immune to this. But I'm just saying that the central government. What I'm trying to say is that the main difference between CBDCs and stablecoin is that it's backed by two different entities, one by private and one by government. It depends on you who you want to believe more. Again, I think that there are advantages to both. That CBDCs coming in, it gives the user and the consumer an additional option, and I think that's just good news for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that explanation. David, from a legal standpoint, do you have anything to say about CBDCs and stable coins?
It's not from I do have something to say, but it's not really from a legal perspective as much as a political one. So I personally find CBDCs to be antithetical to the basic principles of why blockchain and crypto came about. And so I was keen to hear, what can be said about positive side of CBDCs. And I just think that the negative in terms of the, and these are central bank issued CBDCs, that they have exert greater control over your whole life and over all of your spending. And so, they will be able to control when they feel that taxes are due, they can just take those taxes from you. So where do they want you to be spending? What things will they prohibit you from buying? So that kind of control to me is really anathema within the crypto world. And I think you'll see, I think that governments, or at least I think the US, views stable coins as a competitor, if you will, to CBDCs. And that's why I think greater regulations from the US that will be restricting stable coins. I think this is going to be an interesting time in that I think this is where you'll see a real fork in the road between the U.S. and a lot of other countries, and certainly the EU. I think will be taking a much more financial friendly approach to these things, whereas I think the U.S. is principally concerned about the U.S. dollar losing its dominance in terms of a reserve currency, and so they're trying to, I think, come up with other ways of maintaining that. But I still do, it's still really difficult for me to get my head around sort of the positive aspects of CBDCs. I don't see them as being seeds of innovation or any of that. But I'm learning.
Thank you, David.
I think David just mentioned a very good application from the government point of view, right? Like build a smart contract into the CBDCs that says, taxes are due. It just takes it off your wallet, and there's nothing much you can do. It's in the smart contract. That's really a bummer, to be honest.
Wait, but is that gonna be? I mean, at least from what you guys can see, would it be something that the user has to sign first, or can governments just take the CBDCs from you?
They'll turn it over to an AI lawyer.
Oh my god!
Run by ChatGPT.
Exactly, and then the two of them will fight it out, and you have no say in the matter. That's my guess.
That's quite scary, though. Yeah, but good point that you made.
Well, don't you see? I mean, after all, in China, I think that's why the Chinese are so keenly interested in a CBDC, because they can combine that with the social credit system that they have set up. And therefore, if they want to, if your social credits are negative, and they determine that you're not allowed to buy air tickets or train tickets, they'll just make that impossible for you because you don't have control of your money.
Oh wow. It kind of reminds me of how some blockchains and some tokens are linked to your digital identity, and also soul-bound tokens that Singapore's government is kind of introducing, which allows you to only purchase certain items with certain tokens that you have. So perhaps that's something that CBDCs might also make possible.
Yeah, which is why digital identity is really on the to-do list of central banks. That in order for this to be a complete program, every individual has to have a digital identity to match with their wallets. Again, I think Shin sort of kind of noted jokingly that the anarchists among us will be opposed to this, and I think that's true. But I also, I'm from the old guard, and the initial attraction of the blockchain and of cryptocurrency is, I think, in that political line. So, in other words, to have government less of a role in individuals' lives, and I think CBDCs work contrary to that.
Yeah, actually, I can agree to David's point. Like the CBDC route is, well, it has a C in there, right, which is centralized, and in a blockchain where everything starts with a D, decentralized. We have DEX, not sexes, so on and so forth. And because of that centralized nature of CBDC, it also requires a digital identity that's tied to your physical identity, and these are all the all the things that we frown upon in the blockchain world. I do agree with that. They will be a reconciliation period where we have to figure out how that fits in with the wider blockchain community as of now. But my view still stands with there's more opportunities than threats. I mean, there's certainly some threats coming. Coming from CBDCs coming into the blockchain sphere, but I still see opportunities because developers who come in innovative enough to create apps that will help us secure that border between centralized digital currencies and decentralized digital currencies. But it's at the end of the day, the reason why I say it's an opportunity is because I think, at least I can't see from now that we can detach ourselves from any kind of centralized financial authority completely. Segregate ourselves from that, because I think about it, if we have that USDT and USDC, in a way USDT and USDC is pegged to the fiat value of USD, which again we frown upon because we find that the Feds always manipulate the value of USD to their own advantage, and it's not really decentralized, it's basically governed by one entity. We don't like that, but yet the invention, if I may, the invention of stablecoins like USDT and USDC is essential to the development, the sprawling development of blockchain over the last couple of years, merely because it provides an anchor for all those people in the blockchain sphere who is trading in the altcoins or ETH and bitcoins to come back to an anchor point. And so I felt that CBDC could be, we could have two anchor points, one in a decentralized version and another one which is a slightly more centralized version. And then that's where the innovation comes in. Then what do we do between these two anchor points, the border, so to speak, between the decentralized node and the centralized node? What can we do are there any products or any securities where we can do where people stay on this side of the border who wants to be completely decentralized, or people who wants to go over to the other side? What kind of process that do they have to go to? And that's where a lot of the innovation would come in as well. And I also want to point to a very interesting fact that I did a little bit of research myself before coming to this talk and realized that a lot of the CBDC research papers do not specifically mention that they will be using DLT, distributed ledger technologies. So if they're not going to use DLTs, then what are they going to use? And I think for majority of the countries out there, it's still a large question mark, because it defeats the purpose. If you're going to issue a very centralized digital currency, you might as well not call yourself CBDC. You might as well just use an existing bank, e-payment systems. Why even bother coming to the CBDCs realm, right? So there must be a certain degree from the government side to decentralize some of the authority. They have to let go some of that authority. The question is, how much do they have to let go?
Wow, thank you, Shin. Yeah, I did see that DLT top issue as well, and I was gonna ask that for a later question. But anyway, firstly, I wanted to ask Dan. Dan, you are also quite supportive of CBDCs. After hearing what David had to say, do you have any thoughts about it?
Yes. So anytime there is a problem, a solution is going to be created. So that's where the opportunity lies. I know there's a lot of fear about CBDCs having full control of your own personal income, but I'm sure there will be solutions created. As an example, in Japan, gambling is illegal, but if you're familiar with pachinko, that's all over the country. In a pachinko parlor, you go in, you buy these pachinko balls, and they have no monetary value, but you can take those balls and then you go outside and you go around the corner, completely different business, and then you can trade that back in for cash. So there are going to be methods around any kind of rules or regulations created that people don't like. And that's where the opportunity lies for people that are creating in the space. So that's just my opinion on CBDCs and what I think will happen in the future.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Eric, I think Eric has something to say.
Yeah, I mean, coming here, my thoughts were quite close to what David was saying. That different governments with different political ideology is going to view this CBDC a bit differently. I think in Asia, where maybe I don't speak for most Asians, but I think from my perception, Asians are generally not okay with authoritarian thing, but we are like, yeah, it's not like we have a choice. They're gonna take control anyway. I think, and US is where US is. It's very much like a lot of these quote unquote conspiracy theories is going to come out. They're going to take control. So I think somehow that CBDC is going to be implemented a lot faster in Asia, and somehow we love our technologies and stuff, and I think we are seeing that Asian countries are developing that, and in terms of privacy and stuff like that, there is a great debate about how much privacy we are giving away, but on the same time, we complain so much about privacy, and the next thing people post all their life on Instagram, Twitter. We are on Twitter now and Facebook and so on and so forth. So I still remain neutral about CBDC, but I think that somewhere in the future there will be the convergence, right, between the decentralized and the centralized systems. So that's my view of it. I remain neutral about CBDC.
Right. Okay. When you guys say that there will be a convergence, like what? I mean, I'm not sure if I missed this out earlier or what, but I wanted to clarify, like, what do you think will happen to stable coins and even like crypto once CBDCs are commonly used? Will what would you imagine, like a harmonious balance between crypto and CBDCs will be?
Yeah, I think we spoke about that earlier. I think some people prefer stable coins and some people will prefer the CBDCs. But I do believe that as of now, majority of the innovation is going to come from the stable coins, and majority of the platforms will rather work with stable coins rather than CBDCs. And it also depends on the kind of things that CBDCs, the functionalities that CBDCs want to incorporate. So, for example, I think David brought a very good point. If they want to implement paying taxes through a smart contract that's embedded on the CBDCs, most people will probably say, "Meh, I'm not going to do it." But then obviously they will have to offer a kind of convenience for people to. It's always a game of like I give a balancing game, right? I give you certain convenience in return. I have to ensure that you pay your taxes through my smart contract. So what kind of convenience can CBDC provide to the people? I think that's very important. Now, as far as I can see, based on my previous employment with Visa, CBDC has a huge potential in cross-border payments or remittance. So when we are transacting between banks and doing cross-border payments, digital payments makes it so much more easier and have much lower cost. So there's definitely some kind of convenience and benefits when it comes to more like commercial banks and but this is probably closer to wholesale CBDC rather than retail CBDCs. But my point is CBDCs have to find at the moment there is still no compelling reasons for anyone to use CBDCs except for the hype that if they're going to come in, maybe it makes us easier to convert our value from blockchain to fiat. But again, that's still a question mark. Whereas we already see a lot of innovations and a lot of apps and a lot of applications that's going on, without CBDCs, just by using stablecoins itself. So to answer your question in short, I think it really depends on what kind of functionalities that CBDCs wish to incorporate when they come on in. But CBDCs as they are right now, I don't think they're going to get, I don't see there's a wide reason for its adoption, to be honest. I'm quite happy with just using my stablecoins for now.
Okay. Dan, did you have something to say earlier?
No, not too much. Would agree with what Shin was saying.
Okay. I thought I saw you raise your hand, but okay. David, Eric, do you guys have anything to say about what you think will happen to crypto if CBDCs are commonly used?
Well, I think Shin brought up a really good point. I mean, I think there will be a kind of a bifurcation between CBDCs and then coins and other cryptos, in that the advantages that Shin brought up in terms of cross-border transactions. Again, I mean, I think this is at the commercial level. I think there's an advantage to CBDCs in terms of reducing transaction costs and time. So that's place. That's its role in my mind. My concern is I don't think it will stop there. So, I mean, I was very careful to say, that those are advantages not at the retail level. So, I think we'll see. I think we'll see its growth, kind of in the banking world, in the finance world, CBDCs. But I think it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, because there's obviously. I think right now one is seeing in terms of payments to Russia and how that has to go, or payments between sort of Russia and China, and a lot of these countries from a political point of view want to get away from the U.S. dollar peg on these things, and the ability even now without CBDCs, the effectiveness of putting in punishments. So I mean, it's easier for within the interbanking system to impose the kind of sanctions against a particular perceived or real foe, that payments cannot be made sort of in that regular way. So they'll be searching for alternative routes of payment, and I think CBDCs may possibly allow for that in a speedier way. But again, I mean, I just philosophically, but I think I can't. If it was Dan, but I think there also is a separation between sort of East and West, if you will. So I always remember my time at Microsoft, and this is a long time ago, where we were really struggling in China in finding an appropriate word for the concept of privacy. So that I think that's a really interesting kind of cultural difference. It was more than just a linguistic difference. But when in Chinese, wherever you use 私, like 私下, whenever it always has some kind of negative connotation, that you're keeping something secret from someone. And so I mean, I think there is probably a greater willingness in the East for there to be who cares about privacy? People look in my window. We build apartment houses 2 feet away from each other, so you can look into one another's windows. Or so the I think the expectations that we have of privacy, and in terms of how we use our funds or how we store our funds, I think that concept is probably stronger in the West than it is in the East, and so that may kind of support that point of view, that CBDCs may be accepted in Asia more quickly than in other parts of the world.
It just reminded me that for those who didn't know, David speaks Mandarin with a perfect Beijing accent.
Wow, I didn't know that, but I just heard it.
Yeah.
So impressed.
As we were talking about, it reminded me of my time when I was working on a project in Bangladesh. I think, I'm just saying this on a top here. I think CBDC might also be very helpful for developing countries, because your branches and your banks now sometimes may run out of funds. Now money can be backed directly by the central bank, right? And this could potentially translate into better management for like micro loans, right? You can actually monitor the micro loans more accurately directly from the central bank to the borrower, or to whoever that needs the micro loan and that could really help small businesses and to grow in such emerging countries. So that's something that I thought that CDBC could potentially help. Of course, the I also think that what Shin says makes perfect sense. A digital currency to do national transfers. The key question is how much privacy to give away, how much centralization to give away. It's good, right? Because the assumption is that the government always does things for the benefit or for the betterment of the nation. It's just that their definition of betterment might not be our definition of betterment. So that's just some of my thoughts.
Right. Thanks, Eric. I wanted to, go to that question. I mean, now that we've discussed about the good and bad and stable coins and all, I wanted to ask, like, do CBDCs have to be run on the blockchain? Like what Shin was mentioning earlier. Some, I'm not sure if I read that some might not even need to be, or they run on a different distributed ledger technology. I'm not. I was hoping to kind of clarify that in today's discussion. If anyone knows, Shin, firstly, like you wanted to talk about that, right, just now?
I think I already talked about that. I don't know what else to add on to that. I think the short answer to your question is it's not necessary, which is, I guess, the scary bit, right? To David's point, is the scary bit, because if they're not going to use a blockchain or a distributed ledger technology, DLTs, which means they're going to go full cost centralized technology. But I'm cautiously optimistic that they will go in some form of DLTs, because I don't see the point of them. At the beginning of the program, we say that they might the governments might be doing this because FOMO, right? Like, and if they're indeed FOMO because they're seeing, like, the crypto space is doing so well and they're a bit jealous of us and they want to get this one, whether they want to control it or is it because they want to get a pie of our profits or whatever, it makes a lot of sense that they at least meet somewhere in the middle. It makes a lot of sense at least they make some kind of decentral technology, because otherwise, why even bother to do CBDCs, right? It's just, your existing banking network systems would do the job. Like, why even try to come all the way to do that? And I think even at that point, as you can see, there's a lot of skeptics around that says that we won't buy into CBDCs. So if the governments are going to go with a non-blockchain, fully centralized technology with that CBDCs, I don't see anyone would even try to adopt it. Like, definitely they will get zero traction from the blockchain community, so that's gone. And then with the existing people who are trading happily in the TradeFi, they have already a lot of solutions there. So why suddenly introduce CBDCs at all? So for me, it doesn't make sense. But like I said, a lot of these think tanks are still researching what's the best way forward. But in my opinion, using blockchain technology is a no-brainer. They should just because if they don't do it, it's a lose-lose situation for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I also kind of like was wondering what the point of it would be, because I was already thinking, like, CBDCs, is it too much governance for a Web3 product? And if it's not going to be run on the blockchain, then is it even, I mean, like, what's the point? Is it even Web3 anymore? I mean, I had to also, like, ask this as a roundup for our discussion today. I think we have kind of answered a lot of queries and doubts about CBDCs, and I think I wanted to give each speaker a chance to say some last words, and also, what do you think is the way forward for CBDCs, to end on a more optimistic note? Maybe we can start with David.
Right. So I think I think that there will be something interesting that comes out of their introduction. I think it's unstoppable. I think there's a momentum out there that's going to see this through, no matter what people think. But I like that idea that innovation comes when there's a great challenge. And so I think, as we've seen in other fields in technology, when someone puts up a barrier that's almost a throwing the gauntlet down for somebody else to innovate a way around that barrier. So I don't think that the introduction of CBDCs is going to see the end of of blockchain or of cryptocurrencies, but it may see it sort of move underground or move in a sideways pattern to meet that challenge.
Right. How about Dan? What do you think will be the future of CBDCs and the crypto industry?
I think the future is just going to be more convenience with CBDCs and just having that centralized authority, bringing everyone into digital payments, less waste of time and funds for creating cash, for managing cash, for moving cash around. And just like other things too, like as we were talking about earlier with international money transfers, you don't have to worry about Western Union potentially in the future. You don't have to worry about airport foreign exchange kiosks, potentially Ticketmaster convenience fees, because if it's through a CBDC, that's the only way you can pay. You can't charge a fee for something that's the only way to pay. I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens in the future, just because this can bring a lot of attention to blockchain. It could onboard the next million, 100 million, billion users.
Ticketmaster is a real issue, right? Okay, thank you, Dan. Eric, any last words?
Last words. I want to thank my mother. I think that CBDC is it's going to be here. It's like David said, that momentum it's way too great. We can't stop it. I think that it will coexist with our fiat system. That's what I think. I also think that it's also necessary for a time like this, because it gives our central banks an extra tool in their tools to deal with the financial challenges that our economy is currently facing. Whether they are going to be in crypto format, I don't know. But the whole idea of it being a centralized system, I think the ideology it's very opposite of what crypto is meant to be. One is a centralized, one is a decentralized kind of system. So yeah, CBDC will definitely come, and it will be a centralized system. Yeah, that's my view.
Okay. Shin, maybe you would like to end this session off with some of your thoughts about what we can look forward to for CBDs.
Yeah, sure. I think I think I mentioned a couple of times. I think I look forward to CBDC coming in merely because I think there's a lot of uncertainty on both sides of the aisle. There's a lot of fear and there's a lot of curiosity as well. And basically that means there's lots of opportunity to it. And the innovation might be coming in the form of making the competition stiffer and fiercer. It could also mean that the boundaries between the trade environment and DeFi would be blurrer or even clearer. So nobody knows. I think it's clear enough from today's talk that there is still a lot of questions left unanswered. But basically, we all agree that CBDC is a technology to be reckoned with, that everyone that needs to pay attention to. So which is why I believe that when people is here, when there's problems, they will solve it. Dan has mentioned it, and that's where innovation will come in. So I think the next 12 months there will be a lot of innovation coming in from this space. But we'll see. We'll never know.
Yeah, who knows, right? Things are changing so fast in this space anyway. So, okay. Thank you so much, David, Dan, Shin, Eric, for speaking today. Thank you all the listeners for tuning in. Please follow all our speakers on their Twitter, Dan on YouTube, and follow us, MarginX, too. Don't forget. Thank you. We will see you next time. Hope to have another fruitful discussion like we had today. Okay,
Thanks everyone. Thanks Dan. Thanks Eric. Thanks David.
Thanks everyone.
Everyone, yeah.
See you.